Everybody good? We're gonna get rolling. Oh, we're rolling. Okay. All right, it is 6:35 and calling this February 18th Laws and Rules Committee meeting to order. In attendance are myself, Michelle Hirsch, Chair, Alderwoman Ruth Katz, Alderman Bob Dennison, and Alderwoman Terrell Mickens are all sitting committee members, and there's sorry. I counted incorrectly. Getting used to all the new Ravelli, and then visiting tonight is Alderwoman Sarah Casti, Alderman Mike Ham, and President Schott. And Mike, he was hiding. Alderman Michael.
Sorry.
Perfect. All right, so the first thing on the agenda tonight is the intermunicipal agreement between Kingston Police Department and the town of Ulster. We have both Chief Tinty from Kingston here and Chief Berardi from the town of Ulster. And y'all want to come to the table or?
Sure.
Yeah. So the last meeting we had in finance, anyone that was speaking on the sides of the room they were having trouble speaking up.
I'm okay. I'm just gonna listen.
If we could get chairs and actually sit at the table, we get along, so.
We don't fight.
Deputy Chief, you sharing on us?
Thank you.
He don't want you to hear his stomach growl.
He wants to mention the pizza on the way here.
He's anxious.
He goes, these meetings always. Thank you. So in front of you, there is a request for a review of the intermunicipal agreement between the city of Kingston and the town of Ulster. This agreement's been in place for many, many years. There was a 1 year at a time, and then I think last year we switched to a new 2-year renewal. Shockingly, it's been 2 years, so it happens pretty quick. Has been no changes in the agreement. There's no requests. Just so everyone understands, general municipal law allows us to help each other out. This formalizes it for non-emergency events. We do share responsibilities when it comes to special investigations. So we rely on the town of Ulster. They rely on the city of Kingston. The one thing I think for full effect that as a community, both within Ulster and Kingston, is that we struggle to maintain the level of police force that each of us are budgeted for. Currently, we are down 2 positions in Kingston. We're budgeted for them. We just having trouble through the civil service process, and no reflection on them. It's just that, more recently, the deputy chief's been put is responsible for starting that background packet with everyone. And I think we've had 8 applications that have taken the exam, and 3 of them so far have turned down the job. They've sought employment somewhere else or have reconsidered the application. So it is difficult, but we're hoping that this next test, which is held in May, will help us. And I know sometimes you've struggled as well with.
Likewise, there's every police agency in the county goes through the same struggles of retention and recruitment. And like the chief said, we share this agreement to formalize the ability to share those resources. And obviously, due to the geographical nature of the city of Kingston and town of Ulster, there is no doubt that our work overlaps each other. So over the years, prior to my tenure, the chiefs have and municipalities have come to an understanding that in order to make this work and do better work, let's come up with a formal agreement that we can share those resources. So when crime knows no boundaries, we're able to just assist each other at a moment's notice.
Yeah, just again, we talked about general municipal law allowing it to happen under emergency circumstances, but now if there's an event out in the city of Kingston in any time period and our officers or dispatchers or supervisors hear it, they know without question that they are allowed to send reinforcements, as we say, right? But the truth is the same with us, right? There have been many times on our midnight shift that the town of Ulster, with their personnel, has really helped us out tremendously when there's been an accident or something to that level. In Kingston, it requires more than the personnel assigned. We still rely on the sheriff's office and the state police, but they have jurisdiction within the city automatically. Because the town only surrounds the city, technically, they don't have jurisdiction within the boundaries of whatever the CPL 210 or whatever it is allows. And the same with us going out, where state police can enforce any law within the city, sheriff's deputies can enforce any law within the county. We are limited without this agreement to only enforcing it within the boundaries of either the city to have it. And like I said, I want to just add this as well. When I was an academy director, Chief Berardi was a recruit in the class, and that's how far back we go. And he has forgiven me for all the push-ups he's had to do at the time.
It wasn't too mean.
But, so this really is a formal agreement like it's extended before. So if there's any questions, I think we'll be happy to answer them.
Questions?
Yeah, how many instances of mutual aid have you had over the last, say, 2 years?
Ooh. I would say over 100, that there's been times. Now, a lot of them, one advantage is we share the same records management system. So we rely on the county to provide software that allows us to track our calls. So when a call starts in the town of Ulster, we are the assisting agency out there, and they are the assisting agency within the city of Kingston. But not only does it allow us to go out without any formal request, right? An officer in the city of Kingston can hear the call go out, and if they say, we need backup, then they know they can automatically go. This also formalizes the agreement when it comes to the services, whether it's special investigations and emergency services as well. So, but there's been a lot of times here.
Simple investigations that might, require an additional detective or two is easily being able to transfer one detective from his place or vice versa, which makes it seamless in our ability to interact. Because of this agreement over the years and our working relationship, we also do annual training together. So we're very familiar with each other. The officers on the street, men and women, are very familiar with each other, so it makes working together very seamless. It's no introduction of, hey, names and stuff like that, and you just go to work, and that's exactly what we want out of this, and it's been very beneficial.
Okay, the one thing that, and again, I think this was asked at a while back, it may not have been formalized in a meeting, but we don't create work in the town of Ulster. So for instance, if an officer is picking up a vehicle that's being worked on at Bosteels, which is in the town of Ulster, and we turn the corner and see something, we contact the town of Ulster to handle that call. We may assist the town of Ulster, but it's their call. And the same with Kingston. If they are driving through the city and they come upon an accident or whatever it might be, they'll radio us, they'll hold the scene down. If you need anything, let us know. But if not, then the officer, our officer can say, thanks, and move along. So, but like I said, we're not looking to do work out there in addition to what we have. We're looking to help them do their work and vice versa.
You said emergency response, emergency services. Can this cover fire departments as well?
No, this is just for the police department. Yeah, I think the fire, I'm sorry.
No, go
The fire department operates under mutual aid agreements. And I think that really is more of a blanket for fire response and emergency response. For police, we have limited powers of authority within the jurisdiction. And for agreements like this just allow us to make it easier for the responding officers.
Right.
In the past, before we had this, they would call down and say, hey, Sergeant, I hear Ulster on the radio calling for help. Can we go? Right? And then the sergeant would say, hold on a second. We call the lieutenant, we call the chief. Yeah, you can go. Now this removes any of that and just expedites the response.
Michael?
So there are no changes in this agreement?
I don't believe there is. No, there's nothing formal.
No, the only thing we did formalize was extended by another year, so it's a
Yeah,
2
2
year instead of the original, that was one.
Okay.
I have a question. So we have a policy about not cooperating with ICE here, and then, so would there ever be a mutual aid call or like intermunicipal regarding ICE? What would we do?
Well, we share the same stance
Okay,
as obviously, criminal enforcement under federal law, we're obligated by law. On the criminal side of it, under the civil enforcement of immigration, we don't participate with immigration customs enforcement. Obviously, we would respond should somebody call 911 regarding activity, but we're merely gonna be in the background security area. That's strictly up to federal authority right there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I just had a question about the firearms, the training facility. Where is that?
That's in, on Ulster Lane Road, in the town of Ulster.
Okay.
259 Ulster Lane Road to be exact on the address.
Right across in the park, right?
Yeah, right across from Ryder Park.
It's also a joint, it's not only just firearms, police firearms, it's a county. Fire
training center.
That's it, fire training center.
County built fire training center there.
Yeah.
If anybody, I mean, I'd open it up to anybody. Does anybody ever want to stop down and visit?
I built it.
Yeah, well, I do. I offer to my,
It's not
my council members, just the experience, obviously.
That's great.
Some people think it's just like, it's very orchestrated, it's very safe, it's very, it's very, planned out. It's not like, the design of, you got so many training officers per so many, students. So it's, if anybody would ever like to attend,
Michael?
So does this agreement cover Kingston officers training town of Ulster officers and vice versa?
yeah, well, we do equally share instructors, so.
Oh, okay.
Like Chief Tinty might have it as instructor, possibly I might not. So in order to obviously the better collaborative work together, my officers might get trained by one of his officers during that segment or vice versa. So our policies very mirror each other because of that over the years, because we're looking to create the same policies and procedures as what we instruct each other. So we greatly benefit from those additional resources. I've actually hired retired members of the City of Kingston Police Department because we have part-time staffing. I've hired retired instructors to work part-time for me. And in turn, they teach Kingston officers. So it's a nice collaborative effort over the
They were
years.
trainers for us. They retired. Now they're trainers for them, but train everyone. So a couple of things that you mentioned about training and one, the trainers, whoever that is within each agency, meet ahead of schedule and will plan out the year's worth of training. We work with the sheriff's office, not so much the state police, but the sheriff's office and other towns. You sit on the board of the Chiefs Association for Ulster County as well. And on top of that, one thing that we all appreciate is the fact that KPD is an accredited agency by New York State, and so the town of Ulster. So our policies, our procedures, our standards are the same. There's really no difference in between, and there is state oversight of both agencies when it comes to the high liability areas. And, we just went through, the deputy chief just helped us through the accreditation procedure in October of 25. And now we're good. We do yearly compliance audits, but every 5 years is an on-site review of everything we do. I don't know when you.
We've been accredited agency since 2002. We go back for accreditation next year. So we're in the process of going through looking through our files, making sure everything's buttoned up, I's dotted and T's crossed. It is actually ability to, one, safeguard the community because we're operating at the highest level per New York State standards. So it is an achievement that is greatly undertaken. It's not an easy task either. I've been through 2 of them now myself as a police chief. So I said the last time I wasn't going to be through a third. I think I lied to myself.
So put it in perspective, I came on in 1992. We were accredited originally in 1990. I was the program manager in 95, 2000, 2005, and 2010. And then chief 2015, 2020, swore I never had to worry about another one, and 2025.
You lied to yourself too.
And this last accreditation meeting was very nice. It had a special place. I'm going to speak for the deputy chief, former deputy police chief Michael Bonds, who is now the deputy commissioner for DCGS, was the one that handed us the plaque. So that Mike was our program manager and an absolute a trainer. I'm getting all teary eyed. Anyway, the guy was amazing. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
All right, well, if there's no further questions, I'm gonna read the committee report. The renewal of 2-year agreement with the town of Ulster regarding shared services and use of their firearms training facility. May I have a motion? Second? Okay, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. You're in business for another 2 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
Scott, we'll talk to you, buddy. We'll see you.
All right. We are going to change the agenda around a little bit and bring in the tree ordinance for as the second item and invite our urban forester Brent to the table. Come on up.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Crystal. My age.
Hi, everyone. So, I have a slideshow to provide, with, my meeting for you all tonight. Because we have both people who've been part of the ordinance review for the past year, and we have new council members as well. So let me get my screen share set up here. And I can see the window reflection. All right, there we go. Yeah.
High tech.
I'm trying.
That's high tech.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so, the proposed tree preservation ordinance, what I'm going to go over tonight is basically three parts. An overview of where the ordinance currently is, some feedback through the past year of this ordinance process, both engaging with you all and engaging with our community, and then some updates in the latest draft that you've all have been provided as well. So simple, just really broad strokes overview here. One of the most important or most prominent aspects of this ordinance is that trees with a greater than or equal to 6-inch trunk diameter on either public or private property would have a permit for removal. Of course, there are large exemptions that come along with this. Dead and diseased and hazardous trees, of course. Invasive tree species are also listed as being exempt in this ordinance. When it comes to the approved removal of these protected trees, the ordinance specifies that the value of these trees would be replaced as well. So this value could either be with the appropriate amount of individual nursery trees to replace the value of whatever large tree is being removed, or the financial value of that tree. With that, when it comes to development, construction, that sort of thing, trees would have physical protection around them on these sites as well. This is something that's not in our current city code, zoning code, that sort of thing, for trees that are intended to be retained on our development projects. And finally, there's updated requirements of the city of Kingston as well, where the city must take steps to notify the community when removing public trees. So right now, we're really able to see what tree equity looks like in Kingston down to a pretty granular level with the latest levels of GIS mapping. We can know what areas have the fewest trees. We can know what areas experience the highest temperatures throughout the year, and especially during extreme heat events. And we can also identify those areas with the most pollution. The map that you can see there is from a website called Tree Equity Score. The areas with the green are the ones that have the what's considered highest amount of tree equity. So the most number of trees benefiting the most number of community members. And then the areas in yellow show the areas where we have our most vulnerable community member populations, most exposed to extreme heat, most exposed to pollution, and also happen to have the fewest number of trees in that area. Here's a little bit more detailed version of that map. So this is the zoomed in section of Midtown. The dark green blotches are the tree canopy in 2024, whereas the purple blotches are the tree canopy in 2011. These maps are created using LiDAR aerial photography technology to show that at a net value, Kingston is losing canopy. If you look closely at this map, you can see where canopy is being lost. And indeed, the only places where we really see extant canopy existing is not on our streets. It is on private property. And that is where we are also losing the majority of our canopy. To that end, since 2011, Kingston on average loses about 7 large trees on private property per year. Now, because I'm just going off of map data, I don't have the ability to say if all these trees were removed because they were dead, they were hazardous. I assume there was some, but I also, just from my job of being on the street every day and seeing what's going on with trees in Kingston, know that it is healthy trees being removed as well. The data also shows that new trees are not being replanted on private property either. As an urban forester for the city, I have a lot of different programs going on to advance our street tree and public park plantings. But that land mass in Kingston is a fraction of the land of private property. And sorry, I'm having a little bit of laggy on my keyboard stuff, but so I want to move into what has gone on in 2025 with regards to this tree ordinance. So 6 articles and editorials have been written by our local news outlets. I have also hosted 6 public tree events here in Kingston, in Uptown, Midtown, and Downtown. These tree events, Terrell, you've been to one of them. They are surprisingly successful. I thought maybe I'm the only tree nerd in Kingston, but it turns out it's not the case. And during these public tree events, I also give our community members who show up kind of what's going on in Kingston as far as trees. And so I talk a lot about the ordinance with community members and that. Beyond those, I've also done 4 radio appearances between Radio Kingston and Kingston Community Radio to notify the community about this ordinance and how it's currently under review by Laws and Rules. I've been a part of 3 ward and city hall meetings. That includes the April 2025 public information hearing that happened here in City Hall. And lastly, I actually take this as quite a compliment. 2 private tree services have made individual web pages on their pages about the tree ordinance, letting property owners know that it's coming and they should probably cut down their trees as soon as possible. Before they might have to file a permit first. These are for-profit businesses, so what would their motivations be? So there's some kind of recurring statements and sentiments that show up with all of these community outreach moments that I've been able to do. The ones I'm going to go over in this presentation are, why is this ordinance being considered? A comment that comes back pretty frequently is, I've never heard of regulating trees on private property. A big question is, how will this impact me as a property owner, as a homeowner, as a resident of Kingston? And then the last one, I want to save trees. I'm against clear cutting, that sort of thing, but I'm very worried that I'll be fined for doing something that's very normal, such as cutting down a dead tree in my backyard or a hazardous tree. And so I'm going to go over these 4 sentiments because I've experienced them reoccurring in many ways. I think you all probably have heard this from your constituents as well. I think I'm finding out that I need to hit the right arrow 2 times to make the slide. So the short answer to why is this being considered, it's climate change. We are in a very ramping up in precarity situation. Cornell University put out this amazing study through the through this water resources program that focused specifically on the Hudson Valley. Some quotes that I took away from it that I think are pretty valuable is New York's state's climate is changing faster than national and global averages. Specifically in the Hudson Valley, communities can plan for a new normal, which means more frequent and intense flooding, heat, and drought. And I've included a screenshot of part of the report that shows the region that we are in for New York State. That's the Department of Environmental Conservation Region 5. That shows what our baseline number of days above 90 degrees is. In addition, our baseline number of days over 95 degrees. How many heat waves we have a year, and how many number of days those heat waves last, and how many days per year in general we have over the freezing temperature. As you can see, now that we're in the 2020s, and I think it makes sense with what we're experiencing year to year, it is increasing. And this actually gives a number to how much it's increasing. What we can see moving into the near future of the 2050s is that it increases at an even higher, almost exponential rate. I'm an urban forester. I think a lot about ecology and trees and urban environments. What we're seeing happening with climate change is extremely important to what I do because I believe in serving community through our natural resources. And let me hit the right arrow 2 more times again. Here is another version of a map plus some little snippets to kind of reinforce what I'm talking about with climate. This map shows our heat disparity in Kingston as well. In the center of Midtown, we have an almost 20-degree heat disparity difference on our hottest days. So think about that top right snippet where it says temperatures got up to 105 degrees. That means there's parts of the city that are experiencing 20 degrees lower than 105 degrees. And there's think about that real feel temperature difference of standing under shade in 105 degrees versus standing in direct sun in 105 degrees. I also ride my bike to City Hall every day, summer, winter. I'm out in that heat and I'm out in the cold and the snow and everything too. It is hard to just exist as a person outside in this extreme heat. The main infrastructure element that we have to deal with extreme heat right now is our existing mature canopy trees. So another sentiment that comes up is I've never heard of regulating trees on private property, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Very few municipalities have a majority of their community that really know the details of their laws and regulations, right? I think that's not really unique to tree law. I think that's something that we all understand with any aspect of the law that we're involved with here in Kingston. But it's cited at the bottom of this slide. There's a really cool study that came out from University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, which has an incredible urban forestry program, by the way, that over half of all US communities in the US already have ordinances that regulate private trees in one way or another. And specifically right around us here in Kingston, we have cities and towns that already have private tree laws. And additionally, we already have private tree laws in our city code as well. So some details on those elements. Here's the communities that are, the most closely around us here in Kingston and the lower Hudson Valley that already have private tree protections. There are variations, of course, in how each of these communities do it. But in some extent, all of these communities are regulating private property trees. For our own city code, prior to 2023, prior to the adoption of the form-based code, we had language that said all existing trees over an 8-inch diameter measured at a different height than what diameter is normally measured at for trees, but we'll put that aside for a second. It says shall be retained to the maximum extent possible. There's in that old code, which is no longer the current code, there's no details on how enforcement of that shall part was listed. That language was then brought into our current form-based code as well, and I cite which section it's in currently. But beyond that, thinking more about like what this idea of tree regulation looks at, the waterfront overlay area for Kingston in the form-based code already outlines private tree protections. It goes for a much larger diameter. It doesn't specify any type of trees. It doesn't say dead trees. It doesn't say hazardous trees. But the intent behind this is for erosion control. That is a very important part in that part of the city. But of course, as we experience more heavy rainstorms here, erosion is not limited just to the waterfront area of Kingston. So that question that comes up, right? How will the tree preservation ordinance impact me? I think that's a great question to talk about. I'm actually would like to start that conversation when it comes up around how does the tree ordinance that's proposed impact you in a positive way? Using that photo that I have on the left there, what's going on here? The property where all of the landsliding is happening, it removed all the trees. That was a very steep sloped area. I think this was in Pittsburgh. This didn't happen here, but I can think of parts of Kingston that are not too far away from this exact setup. And as a result, huge financial and property damage impacts happened to the suburban property owners that bordered that area. But to kind of like expand on that idea, most homeowners, renters, and business owners, that you already benefit from your neighbor's trees, and so your neighbors benefit from your trees as well. And the removing of those neighboring trees, such as that image suggests, can lead to a lot of unexpected consequences: flooding, erosion, building foundation issues, increased cooling costs as those trees are no longer providing your home shade. And with the current lack of regulation, there is no preventative process to address these unexpected costs. There are other aspects of regulation that we do here in the city of Kingston for private property where we're focused on preventing the worst things from happening. Think about how we handle electric inside of houses, how we handle plumbing inside of houses. These are preventative measures. Right now, we only have the ability to look at impacts from tree loss, such as what that photo shows, through reactive measures, such as lawsuits and animosity between neighbors. But what are they really saying when they say, how does this impact me, right? Like, this is what they really mean. It's like, how does it impact me financially when I want to cut down a tree? I don't want to shy away from that question. This is the most important question of this ordinance, right? So to be very explicit about it, for property owners that would apply to remove healthy, native, and mature trees that provide a measurable financial value. For reference, in 2018, the city of Kingston had a tree inventory done of all of our street trees and our park trees. And with that inventory that was done, we were able to calculate a financial value of those trees in the amount of stormwater that they mitigate, in the amount of reduction in pavement cracking from solar radiation, the amount of pollution filtered, the amount of carbon sequestered. So these are literal, tangible financial values. And so these beneficial trees in our communities, regardless of whether they're on private property, public property, right? They provide this value as well. And so if we go through a review process for permitting of them and we decide, yes, it is appropriate to remove this tree, that lost value in the removal of that tree would be replaced. And again, that value replacement looks at either planting new trees or replacing that financial value that is lost. Of course, as with any regulation that the city of Kingston currently has, scheduled fees and replacements can be appealed. There is a specific section in the current draft of the tree ordinance for that as well. And then, the general fear, right? I'm worried about being fined for cutting down a dead or a dangerous tree. But I'd be very, very explicit about this in the latest draft of the ordinance provided as well. There's a specific chapter early on in it that says about dead and hazardous trees, that no fees and no replacement requirements are imposed for trees that are removed for dead or hazardous reasons. Hazardous trees are emergencies. The ordinance is not here to make emergencies worse. Safety is the number one priority. And just as, I gave an example that the tree services are kind of already aware that this ordinance is proposed and under review. The main way that we handle tree services and property owners knowing about our current regulations with our street trees is by basically me notifying all the tree services that operate in the city of Kingston at a biannual basis that the city has a permit process for removing street trees. And if that permit process isn't followed, there's a current $1,250 fine. So I would just continue this communication should the ordinance eventually be adopted to let the tree services know, hey, here are the specifics of this ordinance. This is really important information for property owners to know. You are now in a position to be able to help the property owner. And in these emergency situations, you will already have the information to handle emergencies appropriately and professionally. I want to touch on another question that hasn't really come up for community members, but it's something we've talked about with various council members over the past year, which is tree law when it comes to single-family homeowners and property developers. Tree law is something that, as I mentioned, 50% of communities in the US have had these since, that study came out in 2014. There are a lot of legal challenges that come up against tree law, and the legal challenges that have won, that have defeated municipal tree ordinances on the grounds of discrimination and on the grounds of government taking, that Fifth Amendment in our Constitution. And those have broken down to when that municipal language includes regulations that are specific for developers versus other types of property owners. That has been considered and is now precedence as a type of discrimination. Regulations for property owners with different zoning designations. That's something we have here in Kingston. So trying to make specific exceptions for one zoning group or another could get us into complications as well. Regulations for certain geographical areas for another, that has also been a precedence where municipal tree ordinances have been defeated. And then flat fees for tree values versus assessing individual tree values. When we're not able to actually put that critical lens into what the value of a tree is. A very classic example is your beautiful, native, very large, very healthy backyard tree, perfect form, perfect pruning, it's providing so many community benefits versus, let's say, our host for spotted lanternfly, the tree of heaven, growing out of a high rubble area in the back corner of a parking lot. Those trees would have significantly different values. If we were to treat those as equal value trees, that's another way that legally we could get into conflict. So the way that the language is written in our proposed tree ordinance is avoiding these potential conflicts. And I'm getting close to the end. So here's what the updates to, it's kind of, we didn't have an opportunity to review draft 4. So the latest draft 5, also included the updates from draft 4. But there is a basic fee schedule for estimated tree value. So currently right now we have a $1,250 flat fee for unauthorized removal of our street trees. That is if someone removes a newly planted street tree that's only 2 inches thick, or if someone removes one of the biggest street trees in Kingston. It's a flat $250 or $1,250, excuse me. So while this is not what the actual fees are, these are a way to help communicate with community members that this is a base estimated tree value. It's really hard to try to explain to a community member. It's like, well, yeah, you have this tree, but it might be different than this other tree. And we have to calculate like an individual value. It's kind of like getting an insurance assessment for a car. This way you actually have some sort of number to talk about with community members. There's some language in the ordinance around the idea of heritage trees. That's for our, most large trees and our highest ecological value native species trees. The original versions of that was a little complicated, especially getting into, is it native, with like the level of New York State protections. We simplified that to focus more with those estimated fees covering a lot of the size stuff. And now the other heritage stuff regarded to state protected native species. A little bit more simplified, less complicated language to go through. For the city, national tree care standards are specified as what city staff and contractors need to adhere to when doing work on public property trees. And then lastly, a section is added for the specific section of language is added for the exemptions of removal in dead and hazardous trees. It's not that that language wasn't in there in the previous drafts, but this just kind of puts it right front and center for community members who may be looking and trying to find quick answers. With that, thank you all for listening to my presentation. And I'd love to hear any questions or feedback that you have to offer.
Why 6 inches?
Say that again, Bob?
Why 6 inches?
Yeah, so 6 inches is usually when we get to a tree that gets to about 30 feet in height. 6 inches is also kind of the threshold for, could someone who's just doing like clearing out weeds, you know, like the little like mulberries and stuff that grow along the fence line. 6 inches is kind of the threshold where most people are probably hiring a tree service to do the work. So it's more focused on the simplification of, if a tree service is involved, they'd be very fast to know if a trunk is 6 inches or larger, right? And so that's the metric, both in it being mature size tree and something that's that at that threshold between property owner maintenance versus a contractor being hired.
Tanner? Like, then Mike.
So not necessarily pushing back, but giving a different perspective on your slide about climate change.
Yes.
I 100% agree that trees are wonderful for climate change, but also climate change can affect the trees in a negative way. So for
Yes.
example, and then of course our constituents, the ice storm, which was however many years ago,
Mhm.
that is where I hear a lot of our constituents why they're cutting down trees.
Yes.
Is because of that, 'cause it was, I mean, I drove around with the DPW superintendent that night.
Mhm.
And it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was like a haunting beautiful because it was just, I mean,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
remember. And then afterwards, people started freaking out
They
because.
feared for their safety.
What was that?
They feared for their safety.
Fear for their safety, and a lot of the trees, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the trees that were most negatively impacted were the healthier trees because the dead trees were hollow, so they didn't have as much. Yeah, they weren't doing as much damage or causing the safety issues. That's what I was told. I'm not an expert on it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yes, trees are absolutely 100% helpful
Mhm.
for climate change, but
Yeah.
there is that concern, and like I said, I know that there's a number of constituents who cut down trees after that for their own safety, if it was close to their house.
Absolutely.
So I think that also goes with, when you said, how does this impact me? It's, you didn't say mostly financial, but obviously that is one of it, but I also
Right.
think climate change is that too, that
Absolutely.
impacts them negatively too.
Yes.
So how have you thought about that, and what is, I don't know if you want to
Yeah.
say anything from that?
Oh, I'd love to. And how much time do you got? Yeah. The first part, I'd love to actually add that into my slide too, for when we're doing community presentations and stuff like that. But storms are being exacerbated, all types of storms, by climate change, and that includes our ice storms. You know, it would be simple in a lot of ways if what climate change meant was our climate stabilized and it just got a little warmer here. But that's not what's happening, right? So to your point, Andrea, the language in the ordinance actually has details about states of emergency when declared by the mayor as well. So in the case of the ice storm, I wasn't here for it. I have been in a lot of other storms with emergency tree response in the Midwest. I don't want to say that or what I would actually prefer to say is that states of emergency take precedence. And so when people are feeling scared about the safety of their trees, I want them to have the most informed information they can to make their decisions. In emergency situations, that tree's already fallen over, the branch is already snapped off, and now it's not structurally sound anymore. That's a very straightforward process. And I think the majority of the work that our DPW and the tree services that work in the area, they're professional and they are up to the task of handling that. In the instances where it's fear-based or maybe motivated by what insurance companies are telling them to do, what information do property owners currently have if they want to retain their trees, right? So I already, in my capacity as urban forester, have to address this with street trees and people's property insurance, being able to say, I am certified to do risk evaluations of trees through our international tree certification stuff, right? Most tree services do not have that certification. If they do, they publicize it heavily. So when an insurance appraiser wants to say that tree is dangerous, it needs to be removed, I would like to say, who said so? I would like to make sure that a qualified professional is actually addressing the risk. If it's just the tree is dangerous, in what regards? What are the targets that that tree would hit? What is the likelihood of failure? What is the severity of the impact? What is the time frame that we're talking about that tree or tree part failing? These are things that I don't really hear come up when I hear that a tree is dangerous. And I use the term risk, danger, and hazard very separately in those attributes. And so the tree ordinance language uses the term hazardous, which is the most accurate, both legal and tree science term for when targets have been identified, there's a high likelihood of failure, and the time frame that that failure will happen has been addressed to mark that tree as being hazardous. I think those sorts of pieces of information are what's crucial for when we hit those really extreme storms and we need to decide what to do. That's effectively what storm response strategy is. Like for the incident command stuff, that's that nationwide FEMA level sort of thing. I have those certifications too. But I want to know, does that answer your question?
It does. I think I just wanted more information because like I said, that was, I hear that more than the financial impacts.
Yeah, fear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it plays right into the climate change, but I do have another question and it may not be appropriate
Mhm.
for tonight. But I am troubled, albeit not surprised, at the difference in our Midtown community, the heat.
Yes.
However, that is also the most dense area.
Mhm.
So do you ever, as part of your position, consider, because we can't put up these big trees the same way we can in a more open space.
Mhm.
Is that something that's on your radar and how you could, okay.
Short answer, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
My Michael was
Michael,
first.
Yeah, under the definitions for forest management plan,
yes.
it says a site-specific plan developed based on a landowner's management objectives and the professional expertise of a skilled forester to achieve long-term forest management goals.
Yeah.
I assume forester has a definition in New York State, but what is a skilled forester? And how would that be defined?
Yeah, so that one, we have the option since this is, still fully editable and everything. The way forester is written in there is just someone who is professionally operating as a specialist in forest management. There's like more specific terms that I could use, but basically like their job is to manage forests. And that can be like state level, that could be contracted, consultant, that sort of thing. There's a whole spectrum of that. I'm the forester for the city of Kingston. Is it that you're interested in like having an additional definition for what forester means for this?
I would think so, because the way I read it makes it sound like only somebody in your position can designate the trees.
Mm.
'Cause if somebody retains a tree service that has a certified forester,
Yeah.
that in my mind, they would be able to make this designation.
Yeah. That's actually a really good term to use, the certified forester. That's not a type of certification specifically. There are people that have degrees in forestry. There's certified arborists. And difference between arborist and forester, I won't if people are interested, I could talk way too long about it, but yeah. So basically, like, is there a forester who focuses on like forest-based agriculture? Think about like what the Kingston Land Trust, Land and Black Hands is working on, right? That's a mixture of agriculture and forested environments. Is there a forester who's focused on trees being grown for ecological only reasons? Is it for habitat purposes? These sort of things. So because there's different like lanes that forestry science can go in, it's kind of like how detailed would we like to go in the definition? You know?
Yeah, I have another question.
Go
It's
ahead.
okay. So this does not apply to properties under 5,000 square feet.
That's not correct. The ordinance applies for all properties. There is a specific section when it comes to the submission of a survey for, basically think about like a property over 5,000 square feet that might have like several trees that qualify as protected trees. That would be when a survey would need to be made, similar to how our zoning code has a requirement for a survey for properties over 5,000 square feet. Property owners already have to do this of providing a survey of trees in the current zoning code that's 8 inches diameter and larger. This ordinance is just kind of making sure that the language of the zoning code and the ordinance language is in alignment of when a survey needs to be provided for either, in the ordinance case, the removal of trees, in the zoning code's case, for the development of the land, that the same type of survey is being provided. There's a size difference. The ordinance lists at 6 inches diameter, the zoning code lists at 8 inches diameter. That could be addressed with amendment if we get to the point of looking at adopting this into law. And I've also already met with our zoning code committee. I think that's
The
the
working group.
working group. Thank you. To talk about what these amendments would look like as well. So I'm working with them to make sure that the amendments to the zoning code that would come along with the adoption of the tree ordinance keep everything in alignment. But all properties, because we can't really designate one type of property versus another, unless we run into an issue of discrimination lawsuits. It's all properties, trees 6 inches or larger would have the protected status.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Tara?
So a few years ago, when we completed the Franklin Street project, Thomas
Yes.
Street project, and the Henry Street project,
yes,
several mature trees were taken down
yes.
by the city. Going forward, if this were to be adopted, would the city be required to replace in kind those trees? Because what they replaced it with were very immature trees that are gonna take like.
Yeah. The short answer is yes. And then the long answer is yes. And our current code actually already requires that to happen, specifically with street trees in the form-based code.
Didn't exist when
Excuse me?
didn't exist within the project.
Right.
Yeah. So we're already in a position where any kind of street development project, if, let's make a simple number, a 20-inch tree gets cut down and it's going to be replaced with nursery trees that are 2 inches. That would be 10 nursery trees for that one 20-inch tree. Our current zoning code already requires that to be done for street projects. So in those instances where it didn't happen in the past, to your point, Bob, because it happened before the zoning code was adopted in 2023, we're already in a position to correct for that lack of value replacement that happened in the past.
Ruth?
Yeah, I've talked to several homeowners who were really concerned over the fact that, you know, they didn't realize they were responsible. You and I spoke about
Yeah,
this.
we talked
Yeah,
about
okay. Yeah, but I wanted to share this. They didn't realize that they were responsible for the tree in front of their house and until after they bought the place. And the tree was upending the sidewalk and I ran into one constituent who had to pay, I think, between $20,000 and $30,000 for tree removal, sidewalk repair, and some other things related to the damage caused by this big old tree. And so I was wondering if we could include in the tree ordinance or zoning or both something where anytime there's a transfer of property to a new owner, that before they sign a contract, before they go into contract, if they're purchasing a home, they have to be informed, just like you have to be informed of lead in a home. You have to be informed of your responsibility for the tree and the sidewalk in front of your house when they are in fact responsible in most cases. Is that something that we could add into their a requirement?
That would be not in this tree ordinance, I would advise.
State law or something.
Yeah, and I think we would have to have further conversations. I think it's a good idea, because I agree, a lot of people don't know, and snow removal should probably be part of
Right.
that as well.
Right.
That they have to remove the snow and the curbs and all of that. Then making that actually happen will be the hard part. So, because we could put it in our code, right, and it could be sitting there like half our code and nobody knows what's in there. So if we really want to make that actually work, I think that would be more conversation. So why don't you email me?
Yeah.
And then we could talk, and then if we have an idea, bring it forward.
Sure. Marissa?
So one of the things that's big question mark still is the appeal process.
Yes.
And so could you talk a little bit about what the other examples do for
Yeah.
appealing a decision from the tree commission?
Yeah. So this
Or
is
from you?
Yeah. So this is something we have touched on a few points prior to the new council members joining as well, but who's gonna take it? Who's gonna be the one to handle the appeal process? One of the ideas that, yeah, exactly. One of the ideas that was floated early on was for the zoning board of appeals to handle it. There was some concern listed from Corp Council about that, saying that state law, which is New York State Law 5A, does not allow for the zoning board of appeals to review. I don't have the rest of like technical words for that, but basically do that kind of review. I think that's worth a deeper look, because we've also found that one of the main lower Hudson communities that have had a private tree ordinance since the 1980s, town of Bedford, their code currently has their zoning board of appeals handle all appeals related to their tree ordinance. I think it's worth taking a peek at it, but.
So I'll ask, because I want a little clarity on.
Yeah.
So in code 40515D7, it said in there, as you remove a certain diameter tree, you have to replace it with that same size diameter tree. Equal value?
Yeah, equal value.
So is equal value the equivalent if I take down a 15-inch, 18-inch tree? The equal value would be X amount of trees adding up to 18 inches, or an 18-inch tree, or a 12 and a 3-inch tree? Okay, so any number there.
You, my friend, just asked one of the biggest questions in tree law right now, which is defined in many different ways by many different municipalities.
Okay.
City of Boston, for example, they want the biggest possible tree that you can buy
Okay.
to replace.
So,
Other communities, they're like, that is unreasonable to make a homeowner buy, let's say, a
$8,000 tree
$8,000 tree that needs to be carried on a tractor trailer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
with a spade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then heavy machinery.
That's right.
Yeah, and you've probably seen the tree space.
I tell you what, I watched plenty of them get taken down at people's great expense.
Yeah,
Yes, with that, so on this ordinance, so Bill has a tree and he wants it, he has to take it down. So he would have to pay to have that tree taken down to per ordinance, the size of the tree. Then he would have to hire the contractor to take down the tree. Then he would have to buy a tree to replace the tree that he's taken down and put it on his property. So my number is probably $25,000 right now.
Okay.
So how do we expect a homeowner to absorb that expense? How do we justify that when we're raising taxes? We're not raising taxes, but taxes inevitably go up. How do you turn around and tell a homeowner, you also need to come up with, I'm not gonna use 25,000, let's say 5,000 to $12,000. That is your extra added burden on deciding whether or not you're gonna put gas in your car, you're gonna pay utility bill. How do we justify the number? So that's just my thought.
And to that, what is the permit fee? What are you proposing?
There's no fee.
Oh,
for
it was, oh, for the
Yeah.
permits.
For the appeal, there is a fee set amount. I think it's $25. Our current, and I'm gonna come back to your question because really we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, currently, as far as permitting goes for our like street trees, there's no fee for that either. And that's actually outlined in the current city code that no fee will be imposed. Yeah. Now, what you just brought up.
You're only talking about a healthy tree, right? You're not talking.
I'm talking about, you want to build a garage on your property and there's two healthy trees there.
Yep, okay.
So you got to remove these trees in order to build your garage or expand footprint on your home.
Or if you want to build.
So you're already in the hole, even if you're not doing that, whatever you have to do, you've got to remove something on your property, it's your property. You've got to put an added expense on that, out of your pocket. That's out of pocket costs. You're not going to get a revolving loan on this. This is real money. Some people don't have real money.
Most people.
There you have it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second. Right, so the first part of it is someone has to remove a tree in order to complete whatever project that they're wanting to do, right? I think that's a really great point of reflection also. I want to build an ADU in my backyard, right? I want to have either the ability to provide more housing here in Kingston where we desperately need it. I want to have a rental income source on my property, that sort of thing. The value of that ADU and the value of the property with the removal of that healthy tree in the first place. And a garage. Let's get a garage in there too, right? Yeah, yeah. Got to park that car. So these structures to go onto the property, granted, those structures already being like within the approved regulations of our current form-based code, right? So the setbacks are being done, the amount of open space that's still required is being done. All those other things have been taken care of, right? If that property owner is at a point of saying, I don't see a way to retain this tree and still accomplish my other goals. The ADU, the garage, that sort of thing. If they choose to remove that tree outside of this ordinance world and everything, right? They're already decreasing the value of their property by doing so. Properties that have healthy, mature shade trees on them, far more valuable than properties without. The appeal of renters to move into properties with mature shade trees around them, also much higher compared to properties that don't. That gets into the world of clear-cut development before building new housing projects, right? There's a lot of studies. I thought about having a slide specifically in with that to show that when trees are retained, mature shade trees around new housing development, there's far more interest in rental moving in. In a lot of situations, there are a number of ways to retain trees in the majority of construction projects. Say, for example, of course, where here's the tree, here's the garage. Obviously, that's a conflict. I'll touch on that in a second. But in any other situation where has the question been asked, can this be located in a spot that retains the tree? I frequently don't see that question be asked first. And I don't see anyone who's an arborist or who has knowledge about how to retain trees during construction projects being consulted during those. Before I became city forester of Kingston, I was a consultant who did that sort of work in the Chicago area, at least. Not saying here is like Chicago, but they got hoops to jump through over there too.
I deal with them.
Yeah, exactly. So the last part to just kind of wrap this all up is in the situation where a property owner wants to take down a mature shade tree, but the additional cost of replacing the value of that tree is more than what they're financially able to do. One, my first question is, how are they able to afford to take down the tree in the first place?
You're asking me? Like me, it's real easy. I go to my garage and I pull out a chain. And I rope it off and I tie it so it doesn't hit the tree and so me and my buddies are drinking beer and the tree comes down. So that's it.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah, so let's use that
You know,
example.
the cavemen used to take these down too, yeah.
So let's use that example,
Yeah.
right? When that tree doesn't fall in the direction that you
I'm
attempt.
not saying it's for everybody. It's like whiskey. I'm not saying it's for everybody.
So
I don't suggest it. I got to tell you something, my professional, opinion.
Mhm.
I do not suggest anybody goes out and takes down a tree.
Yeah.
That is my professional opinion. People are killed every day.
Yeah, I'm in that industry and every rule that we have around safety,
Absolutely,
as they say in the construction industry too, that rule is written in blood.
yes,
Yeah.
it's a fact.
Yeah,
It's-
and while it's fun to talk about, yeah, me and my guys, we're just gonna go take care of this sort of thing. When something goes wrong,
Yeah.
suddenly all those guys, they're gone.
Yeah, in all fairness, I gotta tell you something, I don't, one thing I don't do, I don't take down trees. I don't even fool around with it, I make the phone call. But my thing is once again, I always head back to the financial impact
Mhm.
on taxpayers, okay? On
So
people that
the
own.
last part I wanted to talk about, the specific context, there's no way to retain the tree. You've talked to a certified arborist, they have looked at it and they say, yeah, while you could still set the garage off to the side, you're gonna cut off 50% of this tree's roots, it's gonna die, that sort of thing. If it's a mature shade tree, we're talking something that's, like minimum 40 feet tall.
Mhm.
All right, let's go with the smallest size one, the 6-inch diameter trunk. It's somewhere about 30, 35 feet tall. Remove that tree, that's gonna cost you probably about $3,000. And then the replacement value of that 6-inch tree. So if it's 3 nursery trees to replace that 6-inch tree, you're looking at about, let's say $1,000.
Mhm.
That's maybe a $4,000 total cost at the smallest size. At the biggest size, right, you've got that 80-year-old sugar maple in the backyard. It's providing shade for your entire house. It's providing shade for your neighbors' houses, right? It's providing all that stormwater control, so your yard doesn't flood, your foundation doesn't flood, your neighbor's foundation don't flood, right? If in the example you want to remove that tree, you're already looking at a 5-digit number to remove it in the first place. So how does that person have the 5-digit number to do the removal of that tree, but doesn't have the additional money to replace that tree? Are they also prepared to deal with the potential expenses that come when their neighbors say, my foundation is now flooding because you've removed this tree?
I can answer them, but you know what? You probably know the answer. You know what? Number one, no,
Yeah.
no one ever figures an extra 8% into their budget
Yeah,
for a tree. You just don't do it.
Yeah, so having a reflection point at the beginning of all this through the permit process is a great way to identify all these pitfalls that could come along to find out if the removal of the tree is what's going to actually meet the property owner's needs.
So
And in the case where it does, let's make that last final point that I'm sorry I talked so long to go over these details, but that last point, right? There are going to be situations where a property owner says, look, I am retired. I don't have the money to
Fixed income.
replace the
There you go.
value of this tree. We have an appeal process. We have the ability for a property owner to say, I am fixed income. I don't have the money to do this. And then the question does come back, why do you want to remove a mature, healthy tree if you're a fixed income person who doesn't have the resources to do it? Putting that aside, the other situations, I'd say the overwhelming number of situations, and I'm sure anyone else who's come up with this idea will probably agree, is that fixed income retired property owner, they want to remove trees because they're dangerous, they're diseased, they're hazardous, they're dead, those sort of things. Or maybe they're one of our new problematic invasive species and their backyard's ruined because of spotted lanternfly, right? In those instances, there's no fee. There's no replacement value. because of all of these checks in this process, I think the overwhelming majority of situations that we would find ourselves in, where we want to be able to balance community needs while the rights and respect that property owners deserve, I've attempted to meet that with this ordinance.
I mean, I like the idea, take down a tree, replace a tree. Okay, I like the idea.
Yeah,
I just,
but you gotta figure out what happens in those technical situations.
well, I have older neighbors all throughout my ward,
Yeah,
okay? Ward 7's an old. ward. Okay, a lot of people retire from IBM, so we'll go way back. Okay, they're retired from IBM.
Yeah.
I mean, they still improve their properties.
Yeah.
They still stay up in their properties. They have pools, they have this, they have that, I mean.
and I believe Clifton Street, where the triangle
Yeah.
that's the World War II veterans,
Yeah,
right?
the mayor just did that over.
So that was changed over from blacktop pavement to stone pavements.
Yeah.
I believe 3 houses just north of that, a group of those neighbors on that block contacted me. I assume they also contacted you as well to say how sad they were to see that one of their neighbors removed a front yard oak tree in front of that house because it was the largest tree on that block. And now they're worried about the additional heat that's going to happen on that block. They can look at the old Google Street View photos where that street used to have trees up and down both sides of it, only going back to say like 2012.
And I know who it is.
Yeah, those trees are all gone now. But I think you probably, and it's the case for most of you here, have constituents that really value trees. Maybe they've kind of said things somewhere along the lines of, oh, I really don't want my neighbors to cut down those trees because I really, really like them. But when I need to do it, I have very justifiable reasons for it. Yeah. But that's why an ordinance would be so valuable, whereas right now we don't have any elements to do any regulation of this. But if that wraps up your questions, let's see if anyone else has.
Andrew has one, then I have.
Yeah, I have 2 and they're more about, do you want to ask questions?
Sure. So I'm just going back to the zoning working group for a second.
Yeah.
The changes I had seen, they had sent them to me. Those are gonna go into the zoning code or into the tree ordinance?
So go into the zoning code for the
Okay.
most part, kind of across the board, right? Like that tree ordinance is 30 pages long, super technical because a tree nerd wrote it. But beyond that, the language in the zoning code is what will be amended because right now it lacks a little bit in detail. Examples being like all trees will be planted in a similar width apart from each other. Is that a little ornamental flowering tree? Is it a great big shade tree? There's no itemization for any of that. So where the ordinance has specific language around different tree sizes and street designs and that sort of thing, tree ordinance. The zoning code lacks that. So the amendments would be updates to the zoning code to have the same level of detail that the tree ordinance does.
Okay. My second question is, for these tree services people.
Yes.
If this ordinance goes into effect and is there any liability for them on them if they go in and take down a
Yeah,
property tree, like
yeah,
aiding and abetting, crime,
yeah.
like,
Yeah. So there is precedence for that in New York State. I can't provide like what the precedent is off the top of my head, but if you're interested, I can get it to you afterwards. Too.
Okay.
But anyway, the language in the ordinance says the property owner and or the agent of the property owner. So that's the way to cover those situations where the tree service, if they want to use, say, like they cut down a backyard tree, the property owner gets hit with the like, you didn't file the permits, and now we're going to resolve that conflict kind of deal. If the tree service comes back and says, we didn't know that that was a thing, I have my great big list of all the tree services that I email twice a year. There's a very, very good chance that that service is on that list. So that's when we're actually able to prove that the tree service did have knowledge of this and they chose to ignore that notification.
Plausible deniability.
this is for you, Mike, because I know you're going.
My kind of wrap up, so Marissa, you want to go for?
Can I take that?
Yep.
So most of you, I come from the preservation. So, and I've been on the Land Rights Commission, I am a conservation consultant on projects, and I hear the same thing. Preservation, trees, very much people don't have this understanding of the public benefit, why do you have conservation laws and why do you have tree ordinance? Like, what I have found to be so beneficial now, of course, anyone wants to they just want to do what they want to do and they want to be questioned about it. I get that, that's human. You don't want anyone to question me. You just say, get out of my way. But the benefit of having ordinances like that, it challenges people to really think, do they want to do this? A lot of people make these decisions, whether it's like preservation related or tree related, because they don't have the information. They have assumptions, false assumptions, and they haven't gone and really understand what's the benefit of this tree. I'm like, they don't know this. And the easiest thing is to call up their tree service and like, I'm tired of raking the leaves under this tree. Please just come take it away. This forces that conversation. It's like, this is what you and your neighbors are going to lose. And yeah, it's annoying. Regulations are annoying. Like, let's be honest about it. But there is a real value, public benefit to this idea of forcing this conversation about what if we as a community, what is in the best interest of us as a community? It's why we chose to live here. That's I'll get off my soapbox. That's important.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you. I actually wanted to go back. I think this will probably wrap up unless anybody else has any other questions that they want, because it's more about next steps. Go back to Marissa's question earlier about the appeal process.
Yes.
So if not worked out,
Right now, the appeal process, the language says appeals can be brought to the city of Kingston.
so it needs to be refined. So what is that something that you are going to work on and bring it to us? Or is that something you are expecting us to consider and then put in there?
I think we're at a point where I'd really like to receive the helping hand from laws and rules around this last part, since it is so focused on the law aspect of can the ZBA legally do
And
this?
that's actually my segue to the second question is, as a lawyer myself,
Yeah.
always looking at, what's legal or not.
Absolutely.
Have you, and there's a couple things that I haven't researched, I haven't actually done any law research on, and that's not really my job here when I'm here. But it is court counsel's job. Have you gone through this ordinance in detail with lawyers? With our lawyers?
Yeah. In detail, no. But some of the more pressure point items, yes. A full review of the ordinance has not been done. I think the most appropriate time to do that is probably when we're getting to the point of having it being reviewed by the entirety of the Common Council, right?
No, I would say you have to
No?
go for laws and rules because the laws and rules committee is not really going to pass it without having a lawyer.
I understand. So that's a misunderstanding on my part.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's why I wanted to go over this to make sure that we're all
Yeah.
know what we want to do next. And I think Michelle has another
Yeah.
thing to add to that too, but
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable not having our court counsel
That makes sense.
looking at this and it would need to be before.
I guess what I mean by that, and when that happens, I was misunderstanding on that point, but basically the final draft of this ordinance, I think that's the version that ought to be reviewed by Corp Council. Is it the actual final draft? No, because they may say we need to revise this sort of thing, but basically the final version to submit to Corp Council. I think that's the version that we're guiding ourselves towards now. I know, Marissa, you've taken a look and I'm not a legal writer, right? I've done my best, but there's some basically like rearrangements of it. One of the things is like, can we take the parts that are most relevant to like property owners, single family homeowners, put those at the very top? Right now I'm using the old city numerology of like chapter, section, that sort of thing, instead of the newer version that we're using. So those sort of updates, I think those would make for the most practical next updates for this ordinance, combined with resolving who is the body that handles the zoning board of appeals, or sorry, that just handles the appeals for the tree ordinance.
Do you want help with the writing? I mean, or was Marissa, you doing it or do you want me to help at all?
Well, we definitely need someone else in the council to look at it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Andrew, are you up for doing this?
sure.
Okay. You don't have to volunteer if you don't. want to. Right.
Do it.
You know, yeah, I guess you don't know me.
You know enough to do, right?
I mean, I think you know.
Yeah.
I do it for a living and
Yeah.
right. And research legal stuff. So, yeah, as long as Marissa and I and you and
Great.
Corp counsel.
Yep.
But the appeal process, I probably won't do the legal research
Right.
into the ZBA questions.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you could follow up with Corp counsel.
Yeah, I wanted to do it with Matt, the past week and this week, but he's been out.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, he's away.
Yes, so when it didn't line up for this meeting, I think that final check-in, knowing what town of Bedford is doing, and I hope we don't find out they're doing something wrong, but, if it works for us, checking in with Matt to fully go over, Article 5A in the New York State laws, will kind of be the way to resolve that. I do think we need to figure out who that body is going to be if the ZBA actually legally can't be the right.
So if
Yeah.
you find out that the ZBA cannot legally be that body.
Yeah.
Can you let, I guess, Marissa and myself and Michelle know as soon as you know? So that would be a good start formulating.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So the tree commission can't be that body?
I was just thinking that.
they would not be able to, no. I think for the basic reason being that, like, would they be biased?
Conflict.
Yeah, I think there's a conflict there, for the tree commission to handle the appeal process. There's specific parts in, the tree ordinance when it comes to the heritage trees, where the neighbor notifications and the approvals get reviewed by the tree commission. So I think that's where it shuts them down for being the review body.
Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay. I think Chainsaw Guy has another question.
My last thought here is, and this is going back to the appeals. So I get ZBA and stuff, but shouldn't the appeals person have the same qualification and knowledge that the urban forester has before you just hand it off to Joe Schmo walking on the street?
Could I just provide them the knowledge?
Hey, you know what? I think that's a little, I don't know. Someone would have to be in the loop on this.
Yeah.
I mean, not just.
Yeah. And are you saying like the ZBA?
I'm thinking someone should have the experience and knowledge of dealing with that kind of stuff.
Well, with the
Someone that, before they make the call on.
with the ZBA, our zoning enforcement officer, I think that's what the title still is.
Yeah,
They go to that
exactly.
meeting and,
Yeah.
right, because, our volunteers are all wonderful for
Yeah, no,
other
they do a great
commissions, but they may not actually have expertise
Especially
in whatever board or commission.
this is gonna be pretty unique.
So I think it could be, if the ZBA works, it could be a situation where Brent has to go to that meeting
Yeah.
to supply any.
So kind of like what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so similar to like when the ZBA has a specific zoning question, they'll ask the enforcement officer.
So devil's advocate,
Okay.
he turns around, and tells the people on the property, you want to know something, regardless of what you're saying, that tree is, this is what it is. And they go, well, we're gonna appeal that. So then they show up to zoning board of appeals and Brent's sitting here again. Okay, I mean, come on, let's,
I think there's parallels to that already exist when it
Mhm.
comes to like engineer stamps with buildings. So I'm not the only arborist who exists on the planet.
no.
Yeah,
Right.
so a property owner also has the full capacity to
Second part.
hire a consulting arborist if they don't agree with what my opinion is.
Wait, same thing goes with code enforcement officer.
Yeah.
That is, code
Exactly.
enforcement office comes to the DBA and explains.
So then the property owner would get to state their case.
Yes,
Brent would give his opinion, professional opinion, which may, be a little biased, but
yeah, if I could give an example, with the,
can I just finish? And the
Yes, go
ZBA,
go.
the ZBA is ultimately the one that make the decision based off of what Brent is saying and also what the property owners are saying.
So they fall back on code and then whatever his opinion was on the situation. That's how they determine. I mean, nobody's professional in every single field.
Right.
You know, everybody's not Bob.
But you're saying the
Yeah.
property owner could bring their own certified arborist with them?
Yeah, I mean, the appeal is where they get to make their case.
Yeah.
For whatever the reason, whether it's a hardship or.
No, I just had a thought here, you know, someone of equal credentials should
Certified.
be determining an appeals process. And maybe not from here. How's that?
Well, I'm
I
for.
mean, this is like everyday stuff. I mean, you know, you don't have certain people from certain areas weigh in on an appeals.
So the example I was gonna give, and it looks like Michelle and Michael, you both had things to add too, but, so the tree commission right now that oversees permit authorizations for street trees, right? I go to those meetings. I am, of course, not a voting member, right? I'm part of city staff and everything. The job of an arborist is not to give recommendations. Job of an arborist is to report your observations and explain the likelihood of situations to occur, right? So anytime that a tree service or even a certified arborist says, oh yeah, that's gotta go, that's dangerous, that's a valuation, not an observation. So with the tree commission, I stay very strict about providing my observations and the likelihood of things. And then those community members who volunteer to be the voting members on the tree commission, they make the decision. I would just be doing the same thing for whatever the appeals body would be too.
Right, so since we are working towards the
Yeah.
final draft, I actually want to call for a public hearing.
Great.
So that way we can just tie it all up,
Yeah.
get going. So I'm thinking before the next laws and rules meeting, maybe at 6 p.m. So that would be March 18th. March 18th is the next laws and rules. It's 6.
So before that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
right, and then if it lasts longer,
Yeah.
then we'll just push the law and rules meeting.
And then we'll coordinate on clearing up the DDA stuff before that meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. Should be noted that that's also gonna be about the 1 year anniversary of when.
Oh,
this
this started.
Yeah, was introduced too. So Michelle, your timing.
Yeah.
Let's get this done.
Yeah.
And I would highly encourage everybody, we have a bunch of public hearings coming up.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's gonna be a lot of people not understanding this tree ordinance, and I know, thank you for doing the public engagement. I know one of the last meeting, if not the last meeting, is something that we really encouraged
Yeah.
and wanted from you.
Mhm.
So thank you for that. But for this public hearing, if you could all get out to your networks even if they don't want to come to the public hearing, they can break comments to us.
Yes.
So that we're really hearing what our constituents want,
Yeah.
constituents.
So there's either gonna be a great public hearing on this, or there's gonna be a massive increase in tree trucks driving around the city of Kingston. One of the
Get
two.
it done.
Well, 2000 like a law, like.
Big facility.
When you come under a landmark for consideration of designation, they get called any demolition permit on that.
Yeah.
Until it's been heard. And like, it's like, oh my God, the tree.
I'm surrounded by the woods.
It's up nice.
I am. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
So
And I don't think this ordinance would be in conflict with how you'd like to maintain those woods either.
I gotta tell you, I don't go in the woods. I just. I'm good. I'm good. There's something up on the hill behind my house shrieking every night at 2 a.m. I'm not going up there.
That's me editing the next draft of the tree ordinance.
See up there scaring me.
Yeah. All right, so does this body need to check the date, or can you say that you? or is that long?
I probably will not be here in the 18th.
Probably would.
We just-
Okay,
Can court counsel just provide us with and the public with
I'm
the
agreeing.
version by then, not just.
Yeah, that's right. You don't
Yeah.
remember.
I kind of thought that they
I'm sorry.
already looked
he
at all
wants,
this.
yeah, Michael
I'm
wants.
really not, it's just crazy to me that, our court counsel has not like reviewed this and we've been talking about this for a month. That's not a dig
Sure.
on you.
Yep.
That's a dig on the bonkers process that seems to happen, at City Hall. And I think it's a disservice to the public if they're going to be coming to a public hearing on legislation proposed by the administration that has not been reviewed legally by the administration. So I just want our
I agree with
corporation
that, Mike.
council to
Yeah.
sort of have the version that is approved by our corporation council before the public engages with this in a serious way.
Marissa, can we get this done in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I reviewed it, so I have my questions. It's just a matter of the availability of court counsel.
Right.
Okay, so if we take the first layer of it, then get it to clerk council. And yeah. Hopefully that will be enough time.
Yeah, I think that's a very prudent decision to make, and thanks for bringing that up, Michael. I think it's possible. I think we can do it. It's tight, right?
It's a little tight.
Yeah, you know, I will owe Corp Council, a lot of gratitude, if they're able to get that done in time. Are we thinking to, continue to have that set public hearing and, work as hard as we can to have Corp Council get the review before the public hearing? And if they don't complete the review before then, look at the possibility of rescheduling?
Can we just,
You want to do it now?
can we do it before caucus instead the public hearing?
Yeah,
Because,
April caucus?
yes.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
No, next week.
Oh, okay, I haven't cleared my calendar.
So, yeah, it would be before the April caucus, which would be April 6th.
Okay.
Because it's,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's March 18th, we're not gonna pass anything out of laws and rules committee without absorbing what the public has said to us anyway. And we'll have to have a debate anyway, so we'll still have to have the next laws and rules meeting. And this
Right.
gives us a little breathing room to make sure that we're giving the public
Yeah,
the best draft. You know, or as close to final as we could get, okay, so can everybody call the meeting tomorrow? So it's just the laws and rules committee, so we just need 3 of you.
Yeah.
To make sure that you could be there. So you wanna say 6:30 or?
Sure.
So 6:30 on the 6th, can 3 of you be there?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. Getting there.
we're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been so excited for this process. Genuinely the whole time. Like, I didn't want it to go fast and cause problems. I want it to be done right. I really appreciate everyone's attention to make sure it's getting done right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I just want to make a comment. I don't have a question, but there were constituents who came to the public hearing when you first held it last year.
Yeah.
And then came to me and then I came to you. And I think they will be gratified to know that some of the changes that you've made in this draft reflect what you heard from them. So thank you for being respectful of their comments.
This is for the community and I want to make sure it reflects what the community needs.
Yeah, I don't have a question either. I just want to say thank you. I love the attention and care that you're taking to this.
Yeah.
And I also think about, when we're speaking, when you're doing these presentations with the more general public, that, it's a very powerful message about the differences in temperature on
Yes.
tree line versus not tree line streets.
Mhm.
And I think you could like beef that part up if you wanted, because it's
Yeah,
pretty mind boggling, you know?
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
On that note, are we taking applications for street trees for planting in the spring?
We are, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've gotten to talk to some of you individually about it, others not yet. The city plants free street trees. There are applications. You can either get the like paper PDF versions on the City of Kingston website, kingston-ny.gov/urban forestry. Or on our Uniclab portal, they can now also do the free street tree applications digitally through that portal as well.
I think we should have a contest to what ward can get the most trees, street trees planted.
All the way.
Yes,
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time tonight.
All right.
Thanks.
Does anybody want to just take a stretch before we move on to the charter?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Charlie next to them, still, or?
Whatever, yeah, let's just need it. We're gonna adjourn for like a 5-minute break. Thank you. Yes.
We're back on.
Rebecca?
All right, we are coming back. We are going to now move into old business, no, new business, sorry. Item number 2, chapter 300, noise ordinance. So take it away, Alderman.
Here.
Okay, and so now I can't even see it, but anyway,
Do you want my paper? I have it.
You lost those?
I think I have it.
Break my rules, so I do these.
So
He's got you
essentially,
against these.
this arises from, this request arises from a number of constituents that have been persistent in their complaints about noise having to do with, construction. And they cite wellness issues, the fact that it's impacting their lives and their sense of well-being, and it disturbs their sleep, their mental health, they're cognitively impaired behind it. And so it's been going on, it's been noted, from like different sources. My ward in particular is undergoing quite a number of construction projects. And will be going through a number of construction projects as I suspect most boards will see some, if our pipeline ends up where, these units will actually be coming online, then you're gonna be hearing some of these same complaints. So, what I looked at are 3 different areas, which is the construction start time, the special permit, which a lot of the contractors will put in looking for a waiver of the noise ordinance. Sort of like a determination of, they're saying that this would provide them with a hardship in terms of, project completion, so they put in for the special permit. And then the last one is to increase fees. So I'm looking for 3 things: the construction start time can be changed, special permit, a modification of what a determination of hardship would be, and an increase in fees. So first part, section 300-5, loading and unloading. We would change the time from 6 a.m. Loading, unloading, opening, closing, or handling boxes, crates, containers, building materials, liquids, garbage containers, and compacting units by persons engaged in business of scavenging or garbage collection, with whether private or municipal, between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. I'm suggesting that be changed to 7 a.m. on weekdays, and between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. on weekends, so that they would comport the start times.
Okay, can you just go through what kinds again?
It would be a change. We would mend the start time from 6 a.m. on weekdays to 7 a.m. on weekdays.
What does Ed think about that?
What does,
Our garbage collection guys.
this is,
Separate from construction.
There's said garbage collection in what you read said collection of refuse.
But you would never.
garbage stuff is your loading, opening, closing, or handling of boxes, crates, containers, building materials like the pneumatic. Well, they don't stop. When do they stop?
They started at 6.
Yeah.
And that was, we had this conversation on the council.
Sorry.
I think, I don't know if Michelle was on it, but it was.
No, not yet.
Yes, this was the only, I was the only one on it, and that was one of our big concerns, is even if we have an exception to the city, because you're right, this was before Ed was on the council too, on here, and yeah, it was either we're gonna impact them, and they're not gonna be able to get it done, and now it's even worse because we're even more understaffed than we were 8 years ago, and then, or do we put an exception, but then other companies, you know, the city could do it, but the other companies can't do it, that just wasn't fair either. So, because there are some private
Yeah.
companies that
Oh, yeah.
come and as you know, yeah, the apartments.
Absolutely.
So that was, that was the thing that we discussed and debated and decided to leave it this.
Can we take out garbage collection?
I mean, it's still the same different, it's the same kind of.
No, because they're
It's
in
not.
and out. The garbage
Pretty
collection is in and out. Whereas construction noise, it can last the entire day.
Hold on, okay, so Mike, Pam, and then Michael.
So in construction, we have a thing called steam time. Okay, even though it's antiquated.
What now?
It's called steam time.
Steam.
Steam time is the contractor, okay, we've all heard the term time is money. Okay? Contractor has a window of opportunity this big to get a job this big done, okay? So steam time, what it is at 6 a.m., they're not actually performing the physical work at 6 a.m., but everybody reports to the job site. And that's where wherever the drop area is, or the designated zone for pipe, materials, and everything is already being, handed. The guys are getting together, toolbox talks take place, this takes place, that takes place. Now, I'm not saying they don't go out there and start at 7 a.m. exact, but most of the crew is on a 7 a.m. schedule anyway. Everywhere we go, it's 7 to 3:30 is a standard 8-hour day. Now, I think what happens here is, I don't think it's the start, and I don't want to speak for you, Deborah. I don't think the start time, I would say, is the issue. I would think your problem is going to be when they work a 12-hour shift and they start working into 7 o'clock at night. Once again, construction has a window of opportunity this big to get done. And everybody no one wants to be impacted. And if, everybody, the worst case scenarios I always heard is, why can't you do it at night? And I go, oh, really? And I go, okay, you want to pay another 20%, that's great. Great for all of us, but you don't do it at night because that is when people actually try. The majority of people actually are home. But 7 a.m. is usually the start time. The only variances I've known of that we've ever asked for before was anything with rock, okay? We never achieved that goal because we had the Kingston Hospital up here and hammering on rock at 6 a.m. just wasn't gonna fly.
Yeah.
So everybody agreed, this is the time on that. But like 6 a.m., if they're working at 6 a.m., they're probably shifting things around in the yard and they're getting things loaded up into the, into the trucks to be dispersed out on the thing. So if you mandate to them or even suggest you can't start till 7, that pushes your timeline to actually start the project back another hour. So you're really not putting a shovel in the ground till 8 a.m. So it's a domino effect. So the more you push it, the more, what's allowable right now, 6 a.m.?
Yes.
I don't even know. I don't even know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not out there with them at 6 a.m., but I know they start. We'll take Prospect Street, for example, when they were up there doing that line up there. I knew they were down in the yard because I would have to be up there once in a while at 6 a.m. And they were down there shifting things around, but nobody was physically on the equipment going up Prospect, and digging backup alarms weren't going on until 7 a.m.
That's a backup alarm.
That's,
right?
that's,
But that's not a noise disturbance, having people assemble at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
It's not
And that was
noise.
taking place at the other end of Prospect, down there by Jerry Schatzel's laydown area. What's that place that Scott Dutton's doing down there by
The Metro.
the Metro. So everybody was down by the Metro. So it was taking place there. They do their best to get a yard totally out of the area of anybody that lives there. You try. You really, really try.
But in the more dense areas, say like 110 Cornell Street, the neighbors are, surround this area, and the more dense, like the more infill development that you're doing, the more the neighborhood is going to be impacted.
So
So it's not so much that people are assembling or that the workers are assembling, it's the fact that they're actually making noise, they're using backup equipment, they're reducing noise that reaches.
Oh, no, yeah, the hammers start going, everything goes like that, like,
Right,
but the problem is when you do the scope of the work and you start releasing the bids on this job, you have to advertise accordingly. Your start time is now 8 AM to 4:30 PM. Okay, that's your new 8-hour schedule. Yeah, that's an 8-hour schedule.
start at 7.
If you can start at 7, but the problem is if you can't start anything until 7, you're really not starting until 8.
Right.
So that's the
You
problem.
need that 1 hour.
You've got to, yeah, we don't just show up and everybody just shoots a shotgun off and everyone goes, you know, like it does. There's toolbox talks every morning for safety. I know some people in the city, some contractors don't believe that, but there's actually toolbox talks for safety, okay? So that actually takes place. So that's a 15-minute schedule right there. And then from there, they start putting their plans together. The foremans are telling everybody where we're going, what crew's going where we're starting, start loading a truck with stone, getting stone loaded from the yard area. And then by the time they hit the footprint, everybody's rocking and rolling by 7 o'clock.
All right, Michael.
So similar points to Mike and Andrea. I'm worried about the external impacts of delaying things by an hour. So we would get into traffic issues with school buses around 7 o'clock or 7 o'clock. We would get into issues with, and I would assume that this would also apply to, does this apply, if it's gonna apply to garbage trucks, does that apply to restaurant deliveries? Because they back up too, there's unloading of these same materials, for restaurants that also have to happen before the workday starts. And then if we're losing an hour of construction, or if it gets delayed an hour of construction over the course of a 6-month or 1-year project, does that mean that we're now adding those extra hours back on to create longer construction timelines? Because that's what the complaint that I hear about too, is that construction takes too long. And things are taking too long to get built. So if we're limiting, if we're basically removing an hour from the workday, are we now extending the duration of construction projects? I don't know the answer to that. That is a question, not a statement. But I'm worried about the impact to commuter traffic and school bus traffic with starting later. And I'm worried about how this would affect restaurants in my ward.
All right, then Andrea.
Yeah. I know that the impact on the people who have to hear the construction, I just had a construction project this past summer, the brewery expanded. Looks beautiful. I don't know if they opened it. But it was pretty loud.
Yeah.
It was literally in my backyard, but I also knew something, well, I don't drink. But I love the owner, so I'm really excited that hopefully they do well for themselves in the community, but my point is my impact was short-lived. The construction project is now pretty much complete. But the impact on construction companies and construction workers and laborers by making changes, I mean, it's yes, what Mike and Michael said, but also we talked about climate change. They're the ones who are outside working on these projects. That's what I imagine one of the reasons why it's earlier in the morning. Maybe, or is that just?
No, what they try to do is everybody tries to, you know what, there's not a lot of overtime going around anymore. You know, it's very, very limited. So it's usually a 7 to 3:30 is the standard work hours, okay, for the summer. And then as we get into the fall, because we start losing daylight in the morning, we shift it over to an 8 to 4:30 schedule. And that we just, you know, construction's always been a beast of, you know, every night construction's up at 4 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
you know, ready to go. And certain projects will let you start at 6. And what Terrell's saying, in somebody's neighborhood, we can't get out there whamming and banging at 6 AM, you know, but other projects all allow it. And, you know, once again, you could put in a variance for it, okay? And you would probably get it depending on what it is, but I know the city has said no in the past to anything within residential neighborhoods, okay? Which made a lot of sense, but everybody asks. You don't get no until you ask, you know? So, once again, I think I hang my hat on, it's the domino effect of how the job starts, you know?
And
If you
can I-
can't do anything at 7, You're backlogged already.
Right, and do you think that would affect, if we make this change, would that potentially affect how many construction companies are bidding on projects and that it could potentially become more expensive too?
You know, yeah, Bob,
It would be more
Oh,
expensive.
yes, no doubt.
yeah. Bob's the officer.
And just, you know, and again, I get it, I get how the impact, like, all the negative things. But that's short-lived, everything else that we're talking about, Michael mentions, construction taking longer, how about if it's a housing project? Which this council is, very supportive of making sure that we bring new housing, and now it's going to be extended. I just think, when you're considering all the different impacts, those last longer, and people's annoyance for what's happening is real, but it will end.
You bring up a really good point. You know, this council has cleared the path for building permits to be extended to help construction, move ahead. And at the same time, you make one giant leap and then you're taking a big step back. You see, so,
All right, Mila, Sarah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, is there some way that there could be a description of the kind of noise? In other words, if somebody's out there moving materials around at 6 o'clock, it's not so much about that, it's about the backup, the beepers, it's about the jackhammers, it's about that kind of noise that's happening. And also, I've heard it, I had complaints also in Ward 1, which is why Terrell and I started talking. And if that was the noise that was really upsetting, and of course, there was a project.
Which noise, I'm sorry, you said two.
The jackhammer.
The jackhammers, and it's like noise over a certain decibel.
Right.
And
I
trucks
think-
backing up.
And trucks backing up where the beeping is really, right, so is there some decibel level perhaps, like they can do a lot of stuff, the meetings and starting construction, but then not.
But if you think about the beeping and you start regulating how loud a truck can beep when they back up, like how, that's just not gonna be able to be.
That's determined by somebody else.
That's determined by somebody else, there's a decibel meter that can be used to find that, but also projects do go on for a long time, and it's true that special permits, the building department will offer special permits for a project that can be done, to make it fit into a compressed time, but, somebody, what I had in my ward was someone who lived next door to construction that was going on for over a year. That was a long period of time to hear like noise. It's not a short period of time. And it was a certain kind of noise. It wasn't all noise. It wasn't, if somebody was out there moving stuff around, I would not have heard complaints. They were very specific in what they were complaining about.
I survived the high school rock.
Oh, right.
That was one time.
Yeah.
Clear you.
So that's a question. Just, is there a way to make a distinction?
Marissa,
Okay, I'll just put a bit of a question going. What do you like there? What's the impact on weekends? Of giving people a little bit more peace on weekend, what the impact of DPW, what the impact for a private contractor? Secondly, I don't want to push back on this idea. You said, you didn't say waivers, you said barriers.
Variance.
But I haven't,
Waiver, variance, I might have misspoke.
I think,
I'm sorry.
I do think they've been a lot of
Yeah.
waivers from them. I like to question that, how many waivers are granted.
Right, we're getting into that, yeah.
The weekend, I don't know it off the top of my head, but the weekend is a little bit later. And I know
No.
the weekend,
Yeah.
it's Saturday morning, I thought it was an
So
hour
on weekends
later.
between hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. on the weekends or legal holidays.
Yeah,
I'm
and the
looking to have-
weekdays was 6 a.m., so there is an hour difference,
Right.
that's what I meant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But, is it my turn?
Yeah.
I get what everybody's saying, but for me, this is like a quality of life issue. That's what I keep hearing. More people are working from home. It's hard to concentrate when you have this, when you have noise exceeding a certain decibel, you call the police, which is what they tell you to do. The police come and they don't have the decibel reading, which is, appliances. To your point, you said that the actual starting time is 7 a.m. They may convene in advance between 6 and 7. And then the actual, nobody's complaining about them convening and staging, doing what they have to do between 6 and 7. The problem becomes at 7 o'clock when they start making this kind of like intrusive noise all day long. And we're gonna have more of these, more people affected as more, units come online, more units go into construction. And so I don't have a problem with moving it back to 7, especially when you say that the end time is usually 3:30. So why not elongate on the other end to make it 4:30?
That is what, 7 to 4:30 or 8 to 4:30?
If you're saying the usual practice is to stage at 6, start at 7 and end at 3:30.
Correct.
Then why not start at 7, convene
And
at
at
7.
4:30?
And.
Well, they can do that, but then the start time is actually 8 a.m., working to 4:30, okay? So, I mean, that's gonna have to be a contract decision between, city engineer when he puts it out, or purchasing, or whoever puts that out. And they're just gonna have to let contractors know that, and they'll plan accordingly, I guess.
But does that really solve the problem?
Exactly.
You know,
It doesn't.
That's getting into the
It
weeds.
kind of does solve the problem.
But it doesn't, because you're saying the problem is that that the people are working from home and it's the constant noise. If it's still an 8-hour shift, you're just shifting it over. And it does depend on what time you go to work. And I have people, like my sister works overnights, the guy across from me works overnights. When I was a musician, I worked weekends. Like, there is no standard really, like 9 to 5. So how is that shifting over, especially if you're working from home? If that's one of your arguments, if you're working from home, it does not matter if it's 7 to 3:30 or 8 to 4:30, it's still that time period that is annoying for however long that is. That doesn't solve the problem.
So there would, I'm sorry.
Sarah was next.
Oh, what I was gonna say too is that it's not so much the people who are working the regular work days, people you're talking about, but in my neighborhood, there were small-time contractors who had been on a job, they didn't respond to an RFP, they were just hired by someone to come in and build a house, right? So they came in and they were there from the beginning, as soon as the sun, even before the sun rose, all the way until 6, because doesn't the noise ordinance go until 6? So basically, they're working like 10 and 11, 12-hour days to get the house done. Even though it did take a year in this one case, but some of them were faster. But I think it's really all day. And I think maybe the relief, in talking with one constituent, that person was saying if there could even have been some relief on the weekend, like maybe, not so much on Sunday, like maybe there's at least one day off where they don't have to hear the noise. Because some of these projects were going on constantly, like every single day to get it done, right? So they were working 7 days a week, which is permitted.
Yeah.
In the code. So that's another way of thinking about it, because there are different kinds of construction projects. I mean, I've never heard any complaints about the garbage trucks or, any of the noise that happens with people going through the streets early, or even snow blowers. It's just the construction that happens all day long. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Okay, all right, let's move on to the next thing, because we're not gonna
resolve it. Okay, and so the next thing would be the issuance of a special permit. So the special permit is thought in compliance with this article would constitute. Okay, so this is when the contractor would go to planning department and say, look, I have this, this situation. It rained all last week, and now in order for me to catch up, I need additional time. And so but they need to be able to prove a hardship. So when I spoke with Sue Cahill, we agreed that, what constitutes a hardship, and she really doesn't have a definition. And she said she would welcome some sort of framework. And so we looked at least notifying the alderperson, the planning department, and the Kingston City Police, so that all 3 entities would have to agree for an issuance of a special permit, and that special permit would have to be requested 7 days in advance.
You, and here it says City of Kingston Department of Public Works, you just.
Yeah, I took that out. I just took that out, yeah. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to make sure,
Took out-
sure if you,
Yeah, we took out, Public Works and replaced it. Well, no, actually, we just took it out. So there are 3 parties that would have to agree.
why did you take out DPW? Because they have the most experience in construction. So they might actually be able to identify hardships better than planning.
But the permit is issued by planning.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, I get that how the process is right now, but I don't know, I think it might kill me when I get home. If I'm more work,
Exactly.
but they have the construction knowledge to understand what a hardship might be.
Well, we will rely on Sue.
Alright, did you have? your hand up?
So hardships can be defined real easy, okay? Scheduling conflicts on manufacturers delivering something, okay? Steel, okay? Steel is behind. You gotta order steel now for a job a year from now, okay? Any kind of other material set, everything falls into that realm. I mean, it's, right up until there's that fantastic word TNN, so there's hardships all the way across the board, construction is an evil animal. And if you ever put a shovel in the ground in Kingston, New York, it's built on sand and it's like digging through spaghetti. So, objects come up and that's the hardship end of it. Okay, if you are digging in the ground in anyone's neighborhood and certain markouts aren't there, let me tell you something, this city does a damn good job marking out, okay? But there are certain things that they don't know is there. If you break that line, it's time to repair that line, okay? So now you've got to order that material, you've got to cap something off, you've got to do this. So, the hardships are I think they're pretty much easily defined. I would say maybe that's just, I wake up eating this like a bowl of cereal.
But they're not literally defined, and I think that would be a really
Yeah.
good solution for us to put in the code is to have a definition of hardship to whoever.
So if the alderman planning, and who's the third one? Police. Police.
Department.
So the alderman says, no, it's not a hardship, we can't do it.
Say that again?
So the alderman would have the veto power. The alderman would say, no, we're not gonna do that, it's not a hardship.
No, it's 2 out of, well, it would have to be 2 out of 3.
So 2 out of 3, so not just one.
No, it's three separate.
All 3 have to
entities.
agree that it's hardship or not.
And the 2, the majority
Majority
rules, yeah. It gives the older person also the ability to notify and answer any questions that might come.
No, you answered my question.
Okay.
My concern with the older person is, will you be able to be unbiased, because your job is to represent your constituents, and if they say they don't want it there, are you going to be able to then say this is an actual, I think that just puts you in a horrible place to come, that is a hardship because you're gonna,
Thanks.
you're either gonna agree with your constituent no matter what, or you're going to risk, a political issue. I think that is not, I don't know, I have issue with that.
Alright, Sarah?
Well, from my understanding, when we were meeting with Sue, was that she wanted input. But as far as decision making, the question is who would make the decision? It doesn't necessarily need to be the older person or DPW, KPD, as long as they're giving input, and then the planning board or, whoever we need. Right now, the planning board.
I have a question.
But she was looking for input that would help make the decision.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
That's not how it's worded here.
Well, that's why I'm mentioning this.
I have a question just in relation to this. So if a hardship is denied, is there an appeal process for a hardship? So then.
I don't think that's.
I think it says if the planning department finds significant controversy exists regarding an application, a public hearing may be held.
I think that would be.
But that's not in the code right now.
Yes, it is.
That's in the code. I'm just looking at the word, not the actual code.
It's exactly the money.
So, Michelle, I have
Yeah,
a question.
yeah.
The statement,
See, kind of.
so
Hmm.
I get the whole appeals process. This is construction. You don't have that much time to appeal anything. You either fix it, you've got downtime.
Yeah,
you
I
don't-
was just asking about the appeal because then if we're like adding all these other people into a decision-making process, it just seems really messy.
Yeah, if your sewer goes out, you want the construction people to
You want
be
to
there
go quick-
5 minutes ago.
Michael?
So I think I think we're approaching, an actual like operational question. Cause to me, the process seems to work. We have a way to go about getting the waiver to make things earlier. And if some people find that the process is too loose, that to me, based off the reading of the code that I did, that's a problem that lies with the administration and how the administration chooses to run their operation, in my opinion. So it's really a decision of the mayor and the planning department to say, or it's really, in my opinion, the position that the mayor should be taking to say, to tell one of his employees to be more strict about granting a variance. Like, I actually do think that the code is working as intended, but if some may feel it's too loose, I actually think that's an operational question, not a question for the, not a policy.
The only thing that I would suggest kind of opposing that or adding on to that is I do think hardship could be better defined in the code, and that could be where we come in, and then it would be operational on what the mayor has his team do.
I think that's true, and I think that,
Considering.
I think that like, we could define hardship, but I think that there's so many different kinds of hardships.
You never
That-
gonna.
We're going to be excluding digging up a unmarked grave from 1632. Like, we would have to do it so broad that it would just be time, cost, or something else that I'm not thinking of that sounds so broad that it would be that we would actually be loosening the restriction.
Included, among other things.
Sarah?
No, I mean, I was saying, yes, it is operational. I'll agree with you, on that. And I think the planning, the administration can make the decision, but I think it's important to put in that input is sought because those are a lot of the complaints we have. The decisions are made without coming to the council. And I think, bringing in the council, the DPW, just getting input into the decision-making would allow them to reach out to say that something's going on. You're spreading information about there's a project going on here, somebody's asking for a special permit. It would just sort of put that as part of the operations. Even though we're not making the decision, it's left to the city. But I think it's important to allow, to not allow, but to require that there's input sought. I think it could only help. And that's basically what we were hearing from the planning department, that to just have one person making a decision in a void, even talking to the mayor without getting input from the particular people of LKPT, DPW, and the council. I think it would be a better decision having that input, and we would know about it, which I think makes sense.
That's all well and good, but to codify that? I think that if the planning person wants to get input from others, they certainly should do that. But to require it, I have a problem with that.
I think like notification, maybe, like when
Yeah.
they grant a waiver, right, a hardship waiver. I don't ever get notified of, something like that. I get notified of a tree, coming down or someone being given notice, so I think just a notification would be helpful.
So one last point I would like to make. You got a water main break at your house, in front of your house at 3 AM. Do you tell them to wait late?
That's an emergency.
Let me. Okay, this is specific to the creation of noise.
This is noisy. When they go in, when the water department goes in there to dig up a water line, it's game on.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't think that you would have constituents complaining about an obvious emergency situation like that.
So to your point that you just made, why would they complain about infrastructure improvements outside their home
This
to
is,
make their quality of life that much better?
well, in the words of the constituent, it is driving her.
Right, everybody wants it done tomorrow, but nobody wants to be affected by it. I've lived that life for 30 years now.
Let's move on to, Judy.
Yes.
Okay.
We only care when the bulldozer shows up.
Everybody, your friend.
And then the last point would be to look to increase the fees associated with violation of the noise.
Is that a fee or a fine?
Fines, yes, fines.
All right, so are we issuing fines and they're like, people are eating the fines? Like, why would we want to raise the fines?
To discourage the action that is creating excessive noise.
But are we issuing fines and that people are just paying the fine because and continuing?
Yes.
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 We know that KPD is the one
Who's issuing the
who's
fines?
issuing the fines.
Planet. Or, actually, that's a good question. I'm not sure who's issuing the fines. I just know that they're too low.
They would only be too low if someone is being fined and they continue to violate the code.
We're going.
Right, there are people,
Because the fine's meant to deter
right,
bad behavior.
Right.
So if it,
But at these levels, nothing is being deterred.
but are people being fined?
Should people be fined?
should people be fined?
That's different.
Yes, that's different. And I'm saying that, yes, people should be fined and they should be fined at these levels.
Could you find out
If
what
people
the,
are currently.
yeah, what the
Okay,
enforcement
how
is?
many waivers are granted and where they're being granted?
I think raising the fines actually could be a good idea because I think if we do levy larger fines, it incentivizes city staff to use their limited time to pursue higher item fines. But I was curious, like in the instance of that Sarah cited, who pays the fine? Is it the contractor or is it the property owner?
It is the property owner. Okay, so the only other thing that I would say is that, folks are really affected by this. And let's consider the Kingstone. How long do you think that's going to take? Should it be, pass and be approved? How long do you think that construction is going to take?
How long is?
What do you
how long
think
is
that's
the-
going to do to the surrounding community?
Okay, the question you need to ask is how long is the noise gonna go? Because
Yes.
once they're closed in,
That's right.
it's not gonna be a problem.
Well, the instance that I'm talking about is 110 Cornell Street. And in terms of the number of special permits that they've asked for, they've asked for special permits throughout this project. I mean, it's been like every other week.
That's the
snow,
barrel
it
walls.
rained.
That's the barrel, yeah.
But I just.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's what did you say?
The barrel.
Snowed, it rained,
Oh.
we just need to get this in under a certain, time.
It's still, I mean,
And they've always been
and
granted,
you're still getting noise complaints from.
and we're still getting police complaints. Really?
It's closed in.
It's closed in, they're inside.
They're inside now, but there's still trucks and,
Maybe it's the train going by.
that's the other thing. That's the other thing,
Oh,
it's right there.
I mean, backing up trucks is gonna happen too.
I know.
You can't stop that.
So the safety alarms are on every construction vehicle. It's not just regulated to equipment.
And we can't.
Pickup trucks, people's cars,
Yeah.
because you can't run somebody over on the project.
Right,
Right, so it doesn't safety,
Right.
yeah.
but they have asked for special permits throughout this process, and it's like regular, it's like in the normal course of business for them. And you have constituents saying, where's the hardship?
So, if I may,
Yes, please.
one more point I'd like to make. Once again, I fall back on this. The construction industry has a window this big in a 12-month year this big to achieve their goal. To your point about them building houses, I know guys that build houses. I know thousands of them, okay? They try to get there at 6 a.m. They try to work at 7 p.m. at night. You know why? They're only as good as the day is long because they have to go from that project to another house, to pay their bills, to feed their family, to buy a car, to do whatever they need to do. That's how they make a living. And that window of opportunity, okay, where everyone else lives a luxury of 2,080 working hours a year, full-time, from January to January, 2,080 hours of work, okay, 40 hours a week, okay? They do not. Construction people have to make their money in 1,600 hours, okay? 1,600 before the sun goes down and it becomes Alaska. Okay, so that's to my point, that's why they try to get out there.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Bob.
Their goal is to get done and get out of there.
See,
You know, it's a finite thing. Their goal at the barrel factory is to finish there and go the hell someplace else.
Right.
So it's a finite problem. You know, unlike the trains, which
Stuff went.
If you buy a house near a train,
on railroad.
a railroad.
Gonna get
literally.
I now live by a landing pad, a helicopter, or a
Oh.
hospital. It's, new now. It's like Nam.
I would buy the ambulance that you all approved of.
We all do it still here and not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So, all right. So we're gonna follow up on a few things. And Andrew's also gonna work on the
Yeah.
rest of the chapter.
Yeah.
And we will bring it back. But thank you for all of that. Carol and Sarah, I know you're helping on that. Essentially. All right. Now moving on to the big, beautiful charter review article.
right.
You want me to start and sure, you guys know when or? So just a review process, first of all, before we start, big shout out to Sarah, you've done a lot of work on this. So and just, I didn't want to forget that, it's been incredible. So we had the 7 of us. Me, Sarah, Michelle, Mayor Noble, Elisa, John, Tumi, and Barbara as the selection committee. We opened up 3 different bids. Decided at the first meeting that we were going to eliminate one, but the scores on the other 2 and after discussion were pretty close. So we decided to have interviews with the 2 consultants. And after conducting those interviews, we re-met and then kind of conducted a straw poll vote on how they felt. Me, Michelle, and Sarah were very much in favor of the National Civics League, and Mayor Noble and Elisa were in favor of the March. John Toomey said 50-50. It would have been fine with either. Barbara couldn't attend the meeting, and I have not heard from her. You all got, and so because it was close, 3.5 to 2.5, if we split John in half. We thought it was fair to make sure that you heard everybody's point of view. Because it wasn't just all of us saying one thing. We had a good meeting afterwards because they brought up some concerns. We brought up some concerns and figured, taking that to whichever consultant that we end up deciding on, this body decides on, we could hopefully eliminate some of the concerns that we had. Like, for example, Elisa was concerned about the use of staffing time with the National Civics League. We brought that concern to them to say that we just don't have the city staff to maintain this. So stuff like that, we, want to make sure that, this is the best process that we could bring forward to the people. The reason that, and I'm going to speak for us, feel free to, kick me. You did see the mayor's email, I assume, for his arguments. Yeah. Oh, and then the RFPs, and Michelle sent everything last Friday. and I think the three of us agree, reason for the National Civics League is I was incredibly impressed with their approach to public engagement and how much they prioritized that. I left the interview feeling inspired and excited about the project. The Verge didn't have that same approach. It was more of Kingston is doing it right, so we'll just follow the same approach. And I personally don't think that Kingston does a great job. This is no secret. I said this before meetings. Kingston does a great job of communicating and engaging the public. So to say that we keep it status quo really bothered me. What are some of the other reasons? They have, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, one of the main reasons I think we were sort of leaning towards them is because of their sortition process, because when we passed, you may remember that was a critical part, for those of you who are new, you weren't part of those discussions, but the sortition process, but the way that we would select a charter review commission is 3 appointed by the council, 3 members appointed by the mayor, and then the balance appointed through a sortition process, which would attempt to balance provide the broadest possible representation of our community in terms of geography, age, race, gender, everything, so that you're getting your community represented on the Charter Review Commission. And there's a process that the National Civic League has gone through in different places. And they use a sort of automated process, but they work with the group to decide what you want as your categories, age, whatever your categories are, so that you can bring in this broadest representation. And they've also, when they send out their application questionnaires, they have a survey too, so they're gathering information. So basically, it seemed that they had gone through this, whereas the LaBerge group did not say they had any experience with it. It said that they would be bringing in somebody from the outside to do that. And I think for us, the community engagement aspect of this project is really critical. This is one opportunity in the last time was 25 years ago, but ideally it would take place every decade where you actually educate your public, you find out what they think, and you really completely engage them, and you have representation from different aspects of the community who are bringing that input to you. So that was what really was compelling to us, is that particular process, which they have done. And I can say, I also checked references too. And I think you saw the reference checks that went around, and the city of Decatur, Georgia used that sortition process. And they're a city used the same hybrid process. Some were appointed, some were selected through this process. They were so impressed with that. It really made a difference. It got people engaged in the community that had never been engaged before. They felt that had been a huge success, and it part of
Do you want to do this in public?
Oh, because we're talking about people, is this something we should be doing
What,
in executive session?
I didn't even think about that.
We probably should be doing.
That's why I
executive
have
session.
hard copies.
Okay.
I did think of that before.
My computer died.
So I'm thinking we should. Can we?
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss the selection of a consultant.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
So they just. Guys have a vote.
Right. All in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't forget those if you want to do
You probably want to come out of executive session.
Yeah.
Would you like to move that? You're on the committee, I know.
I'll move that.
Everybody?
Second.
Yeah.
My first second.
Yes.
Absolutely. One, two, first and first. You're for second.
All right, so we have gone through the pros and cons of both options. Michael?
We come out of executive session and no action was taken.
Yeah. That too. Who's standing at this point? Oh, both, like,
I didn't.
I'm just asking, yeah, is it
Civic or civic? No, that's.
so why don't we write one for each and then take the vote?
So, yeah, we could do this.
Okay.
Why not to do that?
What?
Why?
Why? No, you know.
Okay.
If this is a pass, then I'll write a second.
Okay.
Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, let's do this one. Okay, this one. Okay.
It's the charter review.
Commission, yeah.
Right? I don't know.
Expected to go this.
Does this seem like,
It's
does that really sound with the charter?
into negotiation. Yeah, into a contract. And just contract.
Right. Instead of that, very quickly, that's why I can say a lot.
And also talk to the ladies from Singtown.
That's great, that's exciting.
This region got a lot of meetings too, even when I was there, because they came back and told me designs before they're here, and that was exactly it's gonna look like this, they'll need to be listening. But I think it's a good project. They're saying good.
All right. So I'm going to read this description. If this doesn't pass, then we will vote on the other and the other. Okay, so it's the resolution of the Common Council for the City of Kingston to enter into a contract with the National Civic League to serve as a consultant for the Charter Review Commission. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second. Discussion?
Did I miss something? Bobby made a face. Did I miss something of that?
Instead of enter, I would use the word negotiate.
Okay.
I had that first.
Because they cannot get a contract.
Right,
Okay.
Oh.
yeah, that's,
Thank you.
I had originally to enter into negotiations.
Right.
Okay. Didn't doubt myself.
Don't listen. All right, so a resolution of the Common Council for the City of Kingston to enter into negotiations with National Civic League to serve as consultant for the Charter Review Commission. We had a motion by Tara Miggins, a second by Marissa. Any discussion? Okay,
So this is not hammered out, it's not finalized. Okay? You have people that are still haven't given you the numbers on attorneys, on attorney fees in both of these for several, whoever's the applicants for the one.
One of them's got an attorney on board.
Let's get an attorney on board.
One is an attorney on board, but the other has attorney fees in the budget. Both of them have attorney
Okay.
fees in the budget.
but there's, this one had more of a complete number, the other one did not. There were still add-ons.
Okay, that's, so with add-ons, entering into a negotiation,
Mhm.
you really can't pick one or the other until the add-ons are disclosed, because you're entering into a contract not knowing the final outcome of the price. So therefore, that becomes more of an MOU. Understanding than a negotiation contract.
We'll have to vote on the contract, right?
Yeah, right now we're just.
You have to get disclosed on the numbers, so.
Right,
But we're
before
just-
before you vote on the contract.
Right.
This is just entering into
Into
negotiations.
negotiations, approval,
We're
and
already-
those
so already-
negotiations, part of those negotiations would be.
Who's doing these negotiations?
Well, the mayor, because I sent out that process.
Okay, the mayor's only can enter into an agreement. So he does the negotiation, sends it to us for approval. So we get another shot.
Okay,
Okay.
just, you know, a little clarity.
That was.
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Uh,
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Set passes.
The Descent by Bob Dennison.
No shame. All right, so it's 4-1. And 5. Alderman Dennis. All right, so we do not need to do the other one.
Right.
Yes.
So while that is going through, I do have one other thing on the agenda, but it's not time sensitive, if you all wanna.
Yeah.
Next month?
Yeah.
And what is, not time sensitive?
Next.
I thought on Maggie, so.
It won't be, yeah, it won't be time sensitive next month either, but everybody's fine with going home?
Yes.
What you did is good, however.
Thank you. I hope
Yeah, yeah.
you'll have more for, I will have more for next time.
Were these code changes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cleaning up of the, yeah. So we can talk about that next time. Tomorrow at 7:00.
So.
Stuff.
Yeah, 7:00, we meet in there, the chambers.
People get here at 5 up. I know the program. We're gonna engineer them to the places I work for.
Yeah. And public comment.
Yeah.
It's fine over anyone.
I haven't said anyone.
Comment.
You don't miss it anymore.
No.
Tomorrow is.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
I.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everyone.
Lisa. Good night, Ben.
Hey,
Good
quick
night.
question. Quick
Yeah.
question. Tomorrow at the Andy Murphy Center, is that right?
No, tomorrow at council chambers, 7:00.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's somewhere.
Yeah.
It does.
Fine.
It is out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.